Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and ahead of their release tomorrow on August 1st, LEGO has sent me the brand new Sonic sets coming out, and it's a really interesting wave. We have a mech for Eggman, as well as a Sonic Team mobile command vehicle, and let's take an early look at these two sets right now. Here are the two brand new Sonic sets releasing on August 1st, 2025. First off, we have 77005 Knuckles vs. Dr. Eggman Egg Crusher Mech, and then next up we have 77006 Team Sonic Command Truck. Both of these are relatively moderate sized, the first one retailing for $45 and the other one retailing for $70. None of them actually have any new minifigures. They all are using figures that we have gotten earlier this year or in years past, but I think that's alright for Sonic because we've pretty much covered a lot of the main characters already, and aside from having to make any more brand new molds, I think they've really covered a lot of the most exciting characters people want to get, especially Metal Sonic making a repeat appearance in this set. We're going to start off by taking a look at the smallest set here, which is a big mech. Typically, I very traditionally love buildable action figures in LEGO, so this mech is pretty much right up my alley, although I definitely feel like there are some things that could have been improved with its design. The set retails for $45 or €40, but only comes with 350 pieces, which honestly doesn't feel like you're getting enough value for what you get. Even throwing price or part out of the window, just playing with the mech itself, it really feels more like a $30 mech at best, maybe $35. Obviously, you do have a few other side builds like a boulder launcher, as well as a small hoverboard for Knuckles, but by and large, the focus of the build is on the Egg Crusher mech itself. If you compare it to the source material, which appeared in the Sonic Prime TV show, there are some pretty distinct similarities like the claws and the stud shooters, plus the little glowing blue things on the back, but they have significantly changed the color scheme to a more Dr. Eggman style red, as well as of course changing around a bit of the details, like for instance in the show, the blaster is in between the claws, whereas in the set, the claws themselves are one arm and then the blaster is the other, which probably was just shortened and simplified just to be able to make it more playable and also to allow it to fit the right scale. Taking a quick look at the side builds here, I just want to focus in on the Knuckles rocket board. It is very oversized, but honestly, I think it works for what it's trying to get across. You have the two little pointy bits that are very iconic to Knuckles' Knuckles on the actual front of the hoverboard itself, some glowing blue parts, and it fits the color scheme as well. Honestly, I don't have that much to say about that one. It is just kind of a throwaway side build, and the same goes for this catapult, which Knuckles can use to launch boulders at the Eggman Mech, but again, honestly, it is just a super simple mechanism and kind of just feels like they had a bit of extra budget to fill. Moving onwards, of course, are a couple of smaller little collectibles like the rings included in the set as well. This ring piece was created for Sonic, but of course we've used it and seen it in many other different LEGO themes so far. Now, taking a look at the mech in general, I just want to focus in on the articulation here. Obviously, the arms can move up and down and back and forth on ratchet joints. Unfortunately, there is no elbow movement, and that's something I really would have loved to see, but I guess LEGO tends to reduce some of the articulation when it comes to budget here and there. The legs themselves can move, and technically it sort of has knees, but there are really no articulatable feet, so it really just means that the feet themselves can bend and kind of act as their own large knees themselves. On the back, you can see you have this engine as well as a couple of cylinders on the back of the armor there to showcase it being powered by the different emeralds, which are cool. You do get a couple of the gems included in the set. You can spin the claw back and forth, which is a fun play feature. And then, of course, you can open up the cockpit to reveal Dr. Robotnik inside, and he has a very, very large place for him to stand inside the mech. I definitely do love LEGO mechs in general, but this to me feels extremely basic and simple. It essentially is just your starter LEGO mech. It doesn't really try anything new or do anything too crazy, which I do understand. Again, you're not trying to really push the boundaries here. It is just your standard Sonic-based mech, but I feel like there could have been ways to make it feel more distinct and unique as a Robotnik egg-shaped mech. If you look at the source material, instead of having the spikes on the shoulders attached to the arms, the spikes themselves are part of the torso, and they feel like these large rounded elements on the side of the torso, which I would have loved to see on this mech, just to make it have a little bit more detail and just make it stand out from your standard LEGO mechs. It also is a little bit unfortunate not to have any elbow articulation. I would have loved to see some sort of joint there to be able to bend, even just like a mixel joint for them to be mounted on, but I do understand joints actually cost extra budget when LEGO adds them into sets, so they probably just figured it didn't make sense to include in this set. That being said, speaking of the budget and price of the set, it is $45 after all, and it definitely does feel pretty high, especially for what you get in the set. Taking a quick look at the minifigures, we have Knuckles the Echidna here, who has dual molded legs, which look really good. This is identical to the other versions of Knuckles that we've gotten in the past, but I think it does look good as a general figure, sporting a specialized mold for not just the head, but also the Knuckles themselves. Dr. Robotnik here is a remarkably well done figure as well. He's utilizing the long legs they resurrected from Woody from Toy Story for Avatar, which I think fit the character super well, especially his portrayal in the games, and you also have the usage of the Hagrid arms from LEGO Harry Potter, which really fit the aesthetic of the character very well. I really do like the use of those. Of course, he has a specialized molded torso and head. Unfortunately, the head cannot move, but if you've seen one Dr. Robotnik, you have seen them all. They are all identical throughout all the sets. So altogether, this set feels to me like it is a fun set for kids, but honestly doesn't really offer anything new, especially for big mech fans. It feels a bit like more of the same, and there's nothing wrong with that, but for $45, I definitely do feel like the value just isn't quite here personally. That's just what I think about the set though, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts as well, and with that we can move on to the larger of the two sets. This right here is 77006 Team Sonic Command Truck. It retails for $70 or 70 euros and comes with 747 pieces, which on paper seems like pretty good value, but again, unfortunately, I do have to say that this doesn't quite feel like it's really worth it. It kind of feels like this is maybe $55 or $60 worth of value at best, and I think the reason for that is because a lot of the pieces go into detailing up the interior or just adding in little bits of detail here and there that maybe don't necessarily add that much to the overall build. However, I do like the concept of a mobile command truck. It's a concept LEGO has done a ton of times and it's very tried and true, starting off with the LEGO Agents 2008 mobile command base, and then of course going all the way up to this. This to me is a decent enough build for a command truck, but I definitely feel like it could have been a little bit more interesting or involved. It's less of a mobile command truck and more of a mobile home for Sonic and crew, which isn't a bad thing. It just doesn't necessarily have like a battle feel to it, other than of course the gun mounted on the side, which is very awkwardly mounted, I will say. It's a little bit strange how it has this very large knob, but that doesn't actually allow you to position or aim the stud shooters. It really is just there so you can swing it back and forth, and essentially you're just meant to kind of angle it one way or the other, either outwards or forwards or backwards, just to be able to position the gun. Moving onwards, we have a cockpit on the front here, featuring Sonic steering the bus, which can be fully removed, which is a bit of a strange implementation, and then the entire thing opens up like so. Tails' buggy can be launched with a lever on the back, and the buggy design is actually pretty cool. It's reminiscent of a couple of classic Space or even Space Police 3 rovers in the way that it's canted forwards, and I think that is just a pretty good design to have for the buggy itself. It's also very compact, and I like how it just fits right away inside this little hatch here. Now moving on to the main interior of the set, there's quite a lot to see. As I mentioned, this is more of a livable mobile home rather than a command base, and it's very evident by the design here. You have a very well-stocked kitchen with a fork hanging from the ceiling, you've got a sink, shelves, an oven, a microwave. It is maybe one of the most well-stocked kitchens I've seen in almost any play-scale LEGO set, much less inside a truck. There's a couple of beds for Sonic and Tails, as well as one of the emeralds on display, and when you go to the top floor, there's actually a really cool reference here. There's a printed 2x4 tile referencing the Chow Garden, an in-game experience, which is a very iconic piece of the Sonic franchise, so it's really cool to see that be fully printed, and of course, a place to actually play some table tennis, a gamepad, another one of those emeralds, some speakers, which are absolutely oversized for this, and just all sorts of fun details to make up the living space of this set. So overall, I do actually think this is a pretty fun toy to play with, especially if you're a fan of the Sonic franchise and want some livable space for Sonic and the crew. It's just the price that throws me off a bit, and that lever on the side definitely is not helping add to the aesthetics of the vehicle. Altogether, for $70, again on paper this does seem like pretty good value with 747 pieces, but it just feels like a little bit too high for me personally just to be able to justify getting it. That being said, the minifigures included are good as usual. Sonic with his dual molded legs and printing on the side of the legs is suitably deluxe, and Tails is also looking good with dual molded short legs and his unique tailpiece, which has been made specifically for him, which just looks really good on display. And also he does have that dual molded headpiece with a winking expression, which is one of the rarer expressions for Tails that you can get. In addition to them, we also get Metal Sonic, which is one of my favorite minifigures to release from the Sonic theme. I just think it is so cool to have this very unique design for the figure, who has dual molded arms and printing on the side of the arms. The metallic printing is actually printed on the silver, which adds an extra layer of shine to the standard piece, and you also have the option to place the head looking forwards as if he is flying through the air, which is such a cool feature to get for a very specially molded headpiece like this, and it's the first time we've ever gotten a LEGO minifigure head that can do that actually has them look like they're flying fully forwards. In addition to these characters, we do get a couple of badniks in the set as well, and these are built really nicely. I actually really like the design here. Specifically, we have the Caterkiller up first. The Caterkiller is a pretty traditional Sonic enemy, and you have a really nice brick-built design for it. It's fairly simple in the way it's built, just using the action posing element to kind of link each segment together, and a printed boat stud piece, so I think it all works together very well, but it is a very nice looking design and looks pretty much just like it does in the game. Moving on from that, we have the Burrowbot as well, which also is very nicely designed. Again, a pretty simple build for the character, but one that just works very well in context of this set. So, overall, I am a fan of the set as a whole and what it has to offer. I just feel like $70 is a little too much to ask for. I feel like the mobile command truck idea from LEGO peaked with the very first one, although I guess the very first one was Alpha Team Mission Deep Freeze, but I would say the most iconic one, which is LEGO Agents back in 07 and 08, and they've been kind of hit or miss since then. This one feels less of a mobile command base, as I mentioned, and more of like an RV for Sonic and friends to live in, which is not bad. I mean, I think it's alright for the concept, but just not necessarily my cup of tea or the most exciting set to me. Of course, those are just my thoughts on the two brand new Sonic sets. They don't really offer too much exciting things for me personally, but if you're a big diehard fan of the Sonic franchise, I can definitely see how you might feel differently, and it is cool how the van itself, despite being a LEGO creation, has actually recently appeared in Sonic canon in the background of one of the shorts they do on YouTube, so it is really cool to kind of see that cross-collaboration between the companies there. That's all for this. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Bye for now.